Hello, everyone, and welcome to class today. I'm not anticipating today's live stream to be a very long live stream. I'm actually looking for it to be a very short live stream. I haven't received any questions via email from any one of you to talk about today, so I've got my own question to look at for us here today that I think is pretty important. So we'll look at this for a few minutes. But first of all, before I dive into that, I just want to give you all a quick thank you. This is a different kind of class, and since it is a different kind of class, the adjustment and getting into the work and kind of making the effort and doing all the things that this class requires you to do can be difficult and different. And I just want to upfront thank you all for making the effort and doing the things that you have to do. We're just getting started. We're just a few weeks in. But even still, I really appreciate it. And I'd also like to say again, give me some leniency. I am still in the process of examining your artifacts. I have looked at some of them. But again, this is probably the thing that it takes me the longest to do out of anything. So it does take me some time. So please grant me some leniency. I'm hoping to have them all completed by the end of this week, so you can move forward with doing whatever else you need to do with your artifacts. If you need to find new ones, or if you're good with what you got, or if you need to tweak some of them, or whatever you need to do. So while I have gotten to some of you, I haven't gotten to all of you. But this is something that it takes me a long time to do. So please grant me some leniency on this. So I've got this question here from the Workplace Stack Exchange, and that's what I'd like to talk about for the live stream today, because it is sort of a big question. And for those of you who heard me kind of thinking out loud about something that I might talk about in the live stream today earlier in the week, I'm thinking I might save that for another day. Because I found this, and we're in the resume module, and I thought this might be a good thing to look at. Because it is something that we need to discuss about resumes, the fact that we kind of have to balance our resumes, or sometimes we even might want to have two resumes, because we're writing our resumes for two different audiences. We're writing a resume for a computer, and we're writing a resume for people to read it. So the author of this post here at the Workplace Stack Exchange, they created this post, and it is titled, "How Can a Resume Be Formatted for Better Automatic Import into Job Application Web Apps?" Now, when they're talking about job application web apps, what they're talking about there are called ATS, or applicant or application tracking systems. And a lot of you are probably aware that these things exist by now, right? These application or applicant tracking systems. These are kind of the pre-screeners that a lot of people use nowadays to see if the candidate is good enough. But the way that it's done is via a computer and maybe a little bit of AI. It's essentially just taking and tracking keywords that it finds in the resume. So if you have these keywords, then you're going to rank higher in this ATS and be more likely to get a call back and get an interview. So the question this person writes is this: many job postings require a job application to be filled out in addition to sending a resume. These job applications are done online on various web apps. Several of these web apps have a limited ability to import from a traditional web resume, but it's not perfect. Much of the application process is simply re-entering what was already on the traditional resume or VC. I think they might have meant CV there, curriculum vitae. Are there any resume formats which are known to be more compatible with automatic imports? Have any of the major HR software vendors published a specification for how to format a resume for easier imports into their tools? So they're looking for easy imports. But in looking for easy imports, it does bring about some more questions. How do we work with these applicant tracking systems? How do we combat these applicant tracking systems? Because these applicant tracking systems, can be our enemies at times. And I've even seen like people online suggesting to other people that they put keywords that don't really apply to their resume. They take them and they put them in small type white font at the end of their resume so that the computer would read it. But if somebody pulled it up to look at their resume, they couldn't see it. Now that's kind of devious, and I don't know that I would suggest that you do that. But it is kind of a way to end around and try to beat the system. But I think one of the important things to kind of realize as we think about this and as we examine this is where are these keywords coming from? Where are these keywords coming from? Like, the keywords aren't going to be the same for every single job posting that you encounter. So that's one of the reasons that we recommend kind of rewriting and tailoring your resume for each job that you apply for. Because the keywords and the things that people are going to be looking for and the qualifications are going to be just a little bit different from posting to posting to posting to posting. And so one of the great places that you can look to try to divine some of the keywords that are going to be a part of the ATS, that are going to be a factor that the ATS is going to be looking for, is the job posting itself. That job posting is going to have qualifications. It's going to have a list of KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Things that you're going to be expected to do, required to do, and things that are optional for you to have. And this is a great place to draw some of these keywords from. You take the most important things that are requirements there, and if you have those skills, then you want to make sure that you use the same words to describe those skills that they use to describe those skills in your resume. So you kind of want to match their wording that they're using in the job posting. So you can try to think like they're thinking. So you could hope to match the words that they have in their ATS system. Another thing that you want to do is you want to keep your resume template relatively simple. Because a computer is going to be reading it. Now, this is more for my designer friends out there, because it was something that, I had a lot of trouble with early on, when I made a really nice designery resume, and, it had a lot of those really fancy graphics like you see on web designer websites out there, where it like has like a graph of how well somebody knows a certain language, and it was really nice and fancy and pretty like that. And a human can see that, and a human can read that, and a human can understand that really well. But you know what can't understand that particularly well? A computer. A computer is going to have a tough time reading your infographics and making heads or tails of your fancy resume. So in this sort of case, you want to kind of keep it simple. Keep your words, describe things with words. Use buzzwords. Try to put yourself in the mind of an HR manager or a hiring manager. Right? And because, they don't necessarily think or talk like we do, right? As a technology person. They have a different vocabulary. They have a different lexicon. So you might want to change things up from how you would normally describe it. To describe things just a little differently. And we're also talking about describing meeting your goals and using words that are, describing meeting goals and exceeding goals and, doing big things in business and industry. Now, this first answer here, it recommends a service called Europass, and if you want to check that out, that is something that's out there that's available. It kind of gives you, it gives you a little format that you can pull into and have. But most of Europass is for European things, so it's probably not going to be good for the United States. It's also talking about LinkedIn here as being good. We'll talk about LinkedIn some more a little later on in the course. Some of you are already using it for your job applications, and that's good. You want to get into that LinkedIn, make sure you have as much of that LinkedIn as possible filled out with as much information about all of your skills in that LinkedIn as possible. You're trying to just cram that LinkedIn just absolutely full of information if you're going to take this track and use LinkedIn. Because, with your LinkedIn, you're going all over the board. So you want to add those skills, you want to get those endorsements, you want to just put as much information as possible in that LinkedIn. And we're going to talk a little more about LinkedIn in a coming module when we talk about social media and other stuff. So that's coming up. But I thought this next answer was fairly interesting when it comes to this stuff. So this person that's answering the question here says, frame challenge, should you? A CV should stand out, not stick out. It has to look good to a human reader, ideally a bit nicer than the other CVs in the same pile. Ideally, you tweak it to better match the specific position you're applying for. This is at odds with trying to make it as easy as possible for you to input into forms. It might make more sense to store your information in a plain text file from which you can easily copy and paste it into forms. A minimum of layout makes it easier to avoid weird glitches when copying and pasting. So this is pretty good advice. Because we are striking a balance when we're sending out our resumes. We're sending out resumes and they're going through a computer system and then they're going on to a human. So when you have one of those systems where you can attach your resume and put information into a form, maybe you fancify your resume just a little bit and then fill out the form and put more keywords in that form that you fill out to try to game the computer a little bit. And you have this text file that you've created that, you just kind of have sitting on your computer that you can pull different stuff out, copy and paste from it. The text file might be way bigger than you'd use for any one in particular job, and you could add to it for different jobs. Right? So then as you add more to the text file to accommodate for a different job, then you could have more from this pool that you can copy and paste from for future job applications. So you're kind of developing your own sort of magnetic poetry of sort of resume pieces, if you will. for copying and pasting into these ATS system applications. Because you do want to have a nicer resume that's going to catch somebody's eye when they go to read it, because there is that human element there at some point. The real trick is striking that delicate balance between getting past the computer and getting to a person. Now, sometimes that also means that you try to end around the computer altogether. In fact, a lot of times that means you try to end around the computer altogether. You try to find out who the hiring manager is, or who is the head of this hiring committee for this job, and you call them up, and you send them an email, and you tell them that you're interested in applying, and you tell them a little bit about yourself and what you're able to bring to the table. And you just kind of make an introduction and just let them know that you're going to be applying. That way, if they're interested, then they'll go into the computer system and look for you, even if you don't quite make it through that ATS system. So we can make a way to end around that computer and get our foot in the door, even if we don't have the best keywords or the most computer-friendly template. But speaking of computer-friendly templates, if you are interested in utilizing a computer-friendly template or an ATS-friendly template for your resume, it might be something that's worth a try for you. You can Google ATS-friendly template, resume template, ATS-friendly resume template, and you'll get a bunch of sites talking about ATS-friendly resume templates and offering those for you. So as we're working on our resumes and we're completing our job application assignments, which really, I keep calling them job application assignments, and that's kind of minimizing them, and I shouldn't really be doing that because they're just for me, they're job application assignments, and you're filling out a form and you're turning it in and letting me know that you applied for a job. But for you, they're job applications, and I'm asking you to take them seriously. You're applying for jobs, and you're looking at getting a new career. So maybe I should reconsider what I call these, right? Maybe calling it an assignment minimizes it just a little too much. But as you're doing your job applications and as you're reworking and rewriting your resumes for the module that we're currently in, this is just another thing that you have to consider. Considering these ATS, these applicant or application tracking systems, because whether we like it or not, they're a modern part of the job application process. So there's something that we need to think about as we approach applying for jobs and writing our resumes and doing the things that we need to do to get a new job. So we need to be aware of what's out there and why we're doing what we're doing. So that's really all that I want to talk about for the live stream today. I told you up front it'd be a relatively short one. We're only looking at about 20 minutes right now. So, that's fine, right? Just looking at a relatively short live stream this week. If anybody who's in chat with me has any questions, feel free to ask. And we'll look at answering those really quickly. Otherwise, that is all that I have for you today, and we'll leave you right here. So we'll just hold on just a second to see if anybody who's here with me live has any questions that they can type into chat. If not, that's cool. We'll turn on the music in just a minute. I'll hang out in the chat for just another minute just to make absolutely sure. And that's all that we've got for today. So we'll just hold for questions and then we'll finish. All right, well, if you come up with any questions, if you out there watching this as a recording come up with any questions, feel free to send me an email in the course. We'll take that, maybe we'll answer it in a future live stream, or I can just answer your email, and that'll be just fine. I'm going to go ahead and turn the music back on now. Hang out in the chat for just another minute, just in case somebody has a last-minute question. Otherwise, that's all I have for you this week. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
Get your hands up. Let's go. Go a little something like this. Switch. This is the end of side one of this record. Please now turn it over for the second side.